Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Nick Blumberg. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Here's what we're looking at.
When I ran for mayor, I promised to transform our public education system. I'm a man of my word.
A news conference turns contentious as the mayor announces his appointees for the Chicago Board of Education, what it means for Chicago public schools. And that's where we kick things off tonight. After a whirlwind several days, Mayor Brandon Johnson announces 6 new CPS board members. The mayor's new choices for board seats are Southeast Side environmental advocate Olga Bautista, Kyla Blaze, Chief of Staff for Cook County Commissioner Frank Aguilar, West Side community activist Mary Gardner, Reverend Mitchell Ikenna Johnson, former CPS teacher and Chicago Teachers Union member Deborah Pope, and former local school council chair Frank Niles Thomas. It comes on the heels of the full CPS board that Johnson handpicked stepping down en masse last week. We'll have much more backstory on this coming up, and join us tomorrow night where we'll be with the mayor one-on-one here in the studio. The U.S. Supreme Court turns away an appeal from R. Kelly. The disgraced musician appealed his 2022 conviction in Chicago for enticing minors for sex and producing images of child sexual abuse. Kelly's attorneys argued he shouldn't have faced those charges because of the statute of limitations for the crimes. Lower courts have rejected those arguments, and today the High Court declined to take on the case. The city's tourism agency says NASCAR's economic impact soared this year. The report out today from Choose Chicago found an estimated $128 million in activity generated by the street race, which it says is a 17% boost from last year. More than half of that came from out-of-towners who traveled here for the event. That analysis was handled by Temple University's Sports Industry Research Center and also noted an increase in the number of jobs supported and unique attendees. In a statement, Mayor Johnson says he looks forward to the race returning next year. Local leaders are marking the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel. Governor J.B. Pritzker called for today to be a, quote, day when we all pray for peace, tweeting that it is past time to honor the innocent Palestinian and Israeli lives lost by securing the release of the hostages and implementing a ceasefire. More than 41,000 people have been killed in Gaza over the past year, according to its Ministry of Health. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says some 1,200 Israelis have died, the majority during last year's attack. According to the UN, thousands of people are likely buried under rubble in Gaza. Up next, more details on the new Board of Education appointees and what it all means for Chicago public schools. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
There are fresh faces coming soon to Chicago's Board of Education as Mayor Brandon Johnson today announces new appointments. It comes just days after the full board announced their plans to step down, and the move happens amid a tumultuous time between Johnson and Chicago Public Schools CEO Pedro Martinez, who says he rejected the mayor's request that he resign. And the district is currently negotiating a contract with the Chicago Teachers Union. Here was a bit from today's fiery news conference with reporters where the mayor announced his picks.
Now, I understand that there are individuals that wish to use this as a political opportunity to sow seeds of doubt. But make no mistake about it, I am going to stand firm and flat-foot to ensure that our students get what they deserve. The City Council can have as many hearings as they want. There's only one person who has the authority by state law to make appointments, and that's the mayor of Chicago, and that's me.
Here to break down a busy few days are WTTW News reporters Matt Masterson and Heather Sharon. Good to see you both. Matt, what exactly did the mayor announce today?
Yeah, so the mayor, it was a quick turnaround for him just after Friday, 3 days ago, when the full board, the 7 members, announced their resignations. He announced the 6 new names today. Initially, the mayor said all 7 would be picked today, but this is going to be the first batch of his going forward. He said there is a 7th that's going to be named later, and then once the board expands, there's going to be more names that come in January. But these 6, they remain nominees for now. Johnson still says they're under a vetting process. They still need to be fully appointed by him and his office before they can actually take over by the end of this month. The board meets on October 24th. The plan is to have them all in place by then.
Heather, as we saw in that clip, you know, the mayor at times appearing defiant, frustrated today during this press conference. Certainly you've covered him quite extensively. Why do you think that was? I mean, who was this frustration directed at?
Well, he was interrupted by 2 different groups of protesters. One, you know, sort of marking the anniversary of the Hamas attacks on Israel and calling for a ceasefire. The other group called for Mayor Brandon Johnson to be fired because of his handling of the Chicago Public School District. That is never an easy situation, especially when you're dealing with somewhat impertinent questions, perhaps, from the news media.
Well,
At least the mayor thought they were. And the one I think that most seemed to sort of frustrate him was about whether it was appropriate for him to now go to London to, you know, sort of draw new business to Chicago, and go to the Bears game that they'll be playing there. Now, I think that was especially a touchy subject because the mayor has been accused of spending too much of his political capital in recent months to help the Bears get state funding and state subsidies to build a new stadium, rather than focusing on what appears to be a very serious financial crisis for the Chicago Public Schools.
Yeah, one touchy issue on top of another, certainly. Matt, what have we been hearing from alderpeople since Friday's news that the board members intended to resign?
It was a bombshell announcement, and there's been plenty of concern so far from both Johnson's progressive allies and from his opponents, many of whom signed on to an open letter over the weekend calling for hearings on those resignations and more transparency from the mayor's office going forward. They have expressed concerns about the district's instability, about the wake of those resignations, and Mayor Johnson's possible plan to take out the high-interest $300 million loan to try and cover CPS costs. There is currently a hearing on the books for later this week, but as we heard from the mayor today, he's not very concerned with how that's going to affect his new board going forward. As he pointed out repeatedly, there is one person who can pick these Chicago school board members right now, and it is him.
Yeah, I mean, as you both mentioned, there is this major financial crunch facing the district and this pretty controversial plan to borrow. There's also the issue of the relationship between Mayor Johnson and CEO Martinez. I mean, Heather, do you think this seals Martinez's fate as the leader of the district?
Well, the board certainly has the authority to terminate Martinez's contracts, and they can do it in one of 2 ways. They can either say that they have cause to fire him, and then Martinez is dismissed immediately, or they start what is a 6-month transition to the next CEO. Now, during that 6 months, Martinez would be paid to help whoever the new CEO of the district to sort of get under his or her feet. It's not clear what the new board will do, but it's clear that even though Johnson and his allies sort of tried to depict the decision of the old board to resign, they had so far sort of not taken action against Martinez, even though Martinez said Johnson asked for his resignation.
And Matt, we mentioned this comes as the district is negotiating a new contract with the Chicago Teachers Union. What have we heard from the CTU?
Union President Stacey Davis Gates today said that the CTU is looking forward to working with this new board. One of the members is a former CTU staffer. But the union leaders never really had many issues. They weren't antagonistic with the previous board. They got along well when they were appointed by Johnson last year and through their tenure. Davis Gates congratulated them on their significant accomplishments during their tenure. She thanked them for their work. But as you pointed out, there are contract negotiations going on. So much of her response today was pointed at CEO Martinez about the issues that he needs to get accomplished to get a deal done, about class sizes, staff shortages, and the revenue that he's going to need to get this over the goal line in a new contract. And
you mentioned, you know, the hope is to have these folks in place by the upcoming board meeting. Do we know anything about the timeline for finding out who that 7th name is going to be?
Johnson didn't give much on who that other person could be, if it would be somebody who stays on. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, or another person. He said said plenty of people are interested in this position. Once the board expands after next month's elections, there will be 21 members. He's going to pick 11 of those. So he's going to have another batch of names he says he's going to release. Sometime this month, we'll get the 7th, and he says they'll all be vetted, those 7, before this month's Board of Education meeting.
All right, well, much more to come in the coming weeks and months, I am sure. Matt Masterson, Heather Sharon, thank you both very much.
Thanks.
And we've got much more on this story online at WTTW.com/news. Plus, we'll have reaction from lawmakers coming up, so don't go anywhere. And as we mentioned, mark your calendars for tomorrow night, just one day away, where Mayor Brandon Johnson will join us for a one-on-one. As we've been discussing, all 7 members of the Chicago Board of Education resigned on Friday, just 14 months after taking on the job, and Mayor Brandon Johnson has already handpicked most of their replacements.
Pedro? Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend you for your leadership and look forward to continuing to partner with you on this effort.
We're going to build a world-class school district, you all. Because the vision of the status quo is to leave our children behind. Fire teachers assistants, fire custodial workers, fire nurses. That is their vision. My vision is about building a system that works for everyone. Imagine our schools down a pathway of new discovery.
And as Heather and Matt just reported, this news follows growing tensions between the mayor and CPS CEO Pedro Martinez and the school board's inaction on removing Martinez from the position. Joining us with much more about this are Alderman Bill Conway of the 34th Ward, State Representative Ann Williams of Chicago, 6th Ward Alderman William Hall, and 25th Ward Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez. Thank you all for joining us here. A lot to cover. Mayor Johnson says his priority is ensuring stability on the board. And as we mentioned, that new hybrid elected appointed board taking over in January. Alderman Hall, do you have any concerns that, replacing the board as they're facing down this budget crunch as negotiations are ongoing might not contribute to stability?
Well, I think what will make instability worse is when people lose jobs this holiday season. I think what will make instability worse in our neighborhoods is people not having the opportunity to make sure that their children have a decent Christmas. And so for this board to sit there and say, hey, I don't want to participate in the loss of jobs, in the back and forth between Pedro and his pandering in the public. And so I think what we're witnessing right now is a mayor calling time out and doing his job. It is his job to make sure that we have the best schools in the country. And so if he wants to call the time out, let the man do his job. If he doesn't, then what will we say months later when we lose jobs for people who need jobs in the times that we're in?
Well, in this conflict between, the mayor and CEO Martinez has been, pretty well out in public view lately. Alderman Conway, do you expect the new appointees to fire Martinez?
Well, Nick, it's been a stunning turn of events in the sense that you have a board of ed that was pushed out for not being willing to fire a fiscally responsible CEO. And now, presumably, he's replaced that board with his loyalists who will probably likely fire that CEO and take out the high interest loan that he wants. And frankly, in this city, we've made so many fiscally irresponsible decisions. We can't afford to make another one, which is why this is, especially during a contract negotiation, such a terrible idea and terrible timing.
But what of that idea that, without making some changes, folks could be facing down, job losses at the district?
We've spent a lot of time as a city kicking the can down the road here, and to do that for a high interest loan just seemingly doesn't make sense. But because of all this chaos, we don't really have clear visibility into the books of the Chicago Public Schools. And that's why what we need to really look at and see how we can run this district as efficiently as we can.
I think that, again, when you use terms like high interest loans and emergency, this, that, and other, listen, this is what we call a job saving package. If we don't do this, what do you say to those who lose jobs? And again, at the end of the day, I'm listening for the alternative from Pedro. Pedro has yet to produce a plan that saves jobs. In the times we're in, with inflation is sky high, we got wars going on in the Middle East. We have instability in Washington, D.C. And so say that to 1,200 people this potential holiday season to lose their jobs, that we will bypass. And when we talk about swiping the credit card, this is, again, a job-saving decision that we don't even know yet. Who says it is going to be this route? Again, political pandering and playing on fears is a tactic that we've seen, unfortunately, Republicans do as well.
Well, and Representative Williams, you said there shouldn't be any big decisions about the future of CPS until the new board is in place in January. What are your concerns there?
Well, since Friday, I've heard from so many constituents who are concerned about what happened with the board resigning en masse. And yes, the mayor has the authority to appoint and fill vacancies, but they want to know what happened. What were the decisions that were made that led us to this point that we lost the board in one fell swoop? And more importantly, they want to know how we're going to move forward in a way that's stable and minimizes disruptions for the Chicago Public Schools.
Alderman Lopez, how do you feel about the way this has played out, the process in terms of determining who the new appointees to the board should be?
Well, I think, like Mr. Representative Williams mentioned, I think it is important to know where this came from. Let's discuss the management of former CEO Vallas in the public schools, someone who issued toxic swaps, $666 million in debt. We have now to pay to Wall Street. That's what the Wall Street is talking about, honoring the debt, $1.5 billion in debt from someone who ran for this office. I also think it's important to know how we got to this point, and the pandering that Alderman Hall mentions. I mean, it's very clear this was an interim board to begin with. There was a joint statement. This board had one more session left. I think they do the right thing to do by allowing the next board, an elected school board. The Mayor Johnson and I campaigned directly. I think it's clear the constituencies that we have are very different. You have someone who is a son of a public school teacher. Someone, majority of our students are Latinos and Black students who need advocacy. 3,500 cuts for social workers, for teachers, for people who need urgent need, have direct impacts in communities like us. I do think that is important, again, and I would be cautioned, the state to even think about what Ronner did in 2015 is right what Alderman Hall said, trying to take over a majority Latino and Black district. I do think is deeply offensive. And again, I think it's very important that we talk about how we got here. The solutions are still in the state. A millionaire tax in November, 3% of the state income tax for millionaires making $1 million, so that we can alleviate property taxes. That's the solution.
I don't disagree with Alderman Sigcho Lopez. Our city clearly has a bad fiscal problem. And that's exactly the reason why we can't proceed to take out another high interest loan and kick this can further down the road.
Well, and how about that question of state oversight? Representative Williams, what should the state's role be in all this? Should it have one?
Well, first of all, no one said anything about a state takeover except a few of the mayor's allies. That's never been suggested. What we have done in the past are things that were like a CTU-backed proposal that would provide that there were to be no major changes in school closures until the board was in place. Likewise, this past session, the Illinois House passed a bill to say no major overhaul of the selective enrollment process until there is a partially elected board. That does not seem unreasonable. I was also an advocate for the fully elected board, and we are moving in the direction of democracy. This conversation isn't about that. This is about accountability and communication, and that's what voters need to hear right now.
Can I respond to that? Because if it is accountability, I do think that we have an elected school board that is going to start, and people should continue to participate, parents, people from the community, teachers, because that's about accountability, something that Mayor Johnson even got arrested for. So to someone who sent their kids to public school, someone comes from the classroom, like some of us, who left the classroom because of the irresponsible decision of the past, I do think it's important to talk about accountability. The mayor is just having an opportunity and the city council to start cleaning up the mess that the previous administrations have done. I do think it's responsible to allow the transition plan and to work with the states. I'm glad that there's not a takeover plan, because that's what I heard, and I'm glad that we are clearing that up today.
Well, I want to mention as well, we got a statement this afternoon from CTU President Stacey Davis Gates, who said Chicago elected a mayor who promised to transform our school district, to break with the failed failed cuts, closings, and furloughs of the past. The Chicago Teachers Union looks forward to collaborating with the new board members to enact the transformation of our public schools that our students and educators need and deserve. Alderman Hall, do you think that the previous board that the mayor appointed wasn't living up to that vision of transformation?
I think at the end of the day, right now, what this board was facing was a failed plan by Pedro, in which he procrastinated. He had a year and a half to produce a plan. Again, as a son of an educator who sat in the back of Harlan, sat in the back of South Shore, again, teachers have already sacrificed to the best of their ability. You have teachers paying for school supplies, for Christ's sakes. Principals trying to rob Peter to pay Paul to make sure the kids have access. I walked the hallways with Pedro 2 weeks ago in which 40-year-old lockers were still malfunctioning in schools. So again, what this board did not want to be responsible, along with the mayor, is for the 1,200 job cuts that are on the horizon with Pedro's pandering plan.
Alderman Conway, you were among 41 alder people who, signed on to an open letter calling on the mayor to hold a hearing before he announced any new picks. And he responded by saying, he's the one who has the ultimate authority under state law to appoint board members. What do you hope a hearing, could have accomplished?
Well, I think what the mayor needs to understand is that he, along with my two colleagues here, are really on an island. And what we've seen from this administration is really just a lot of failed leadership, of course, especially over the last month, from firing his IGA team to being rebuffed on the ShotSpotter vote to pushing back the budget presentation, as well as everything involving CPS. And it's unfortunate to see that lack of leadership, and I hope that he will eventually wake up and begin to lead this city.
Can I respond? It's important to respond directly, and I'm glad Alderman Conway is here, because I think what we have in City Council is kind of what we had in the 80s, right? Is Verdolia 29 kind of resuscitation. I think they're trying to resurrect. I hope my colleague Alderman Conway agrees. The majority of the City Council, just like the mayor, has to come up with solutions. I think that, like he just mentioned it, opposing the mayor at every turn, even when on an issue like this, an interim board that is transitioned to an elected school board. Someone like Alderman Conway, must understand that communities like ours will be hurt directly by these decisions. I do think it's important that this new Verdolia 2029 that is a majority of my colleagues, people who don't have a stake in this, join us on solutions. And I do think it's important that my colleague talks to us on solutions of people on the ground.
Again, no, I'm not willing to take that. In terms of what those 41 people, they are ready to collaborate with this mayor, and he's going out of his way to do that. So comparing it to Verdolia 29, I think it's irresponsible.
Certain members of the council to my colleagues.
But do you think it is meant to be purely obstructionist in the way that the Verdolia Act 29 was, or is this merely the council asserting the power that it has?
Well, again, look, the council, because I know the council can have as many hearings as we like to be. We have, but the mayor has the authority and responsibility to appoint these members. I think, again, what we just talking thing is obstructions, absolute obstructions and distractions from the real issues, which is having fully, and I'd like to hear from all the state about fully funded schools. I would like to hear from my colleagues responsible solutions to address the issues on the ground. We have 2,000 kids with disabilities who don't have transportation to get to school. We don't have the same luxury as Alderman Conway that has to come from an affluent family who can have the means to do it. We don't.
Again, where is the plan? Again, we have not seen a plan to A, save jobs, B, make campuses investments that allow children to compete. Again, kids in Evanston live in a whole different world than kids in Roseland. Let's go back down the hallways of history, and remember when we had to take kids up to the other parts of South along the shoreline to show them that these are campuses that you deserve. And why are we fighting to keep kids from having campuses, access to resources, and the personnel needed to give them a 5-star education in poor and black and brown neighborhoods?
What's missing, I think, in this conversation tonight, and I didn't hear in the press conference today, is an acknowledgement that what happened on Friday with the board resigning en masse with no explanation is a crisis. It's a crisis of leadership for the Chicago public schools and constituents.
Schools were open today, teachers taught, and kids came home with homework.
Constituents have expressed concern and fear. What we need to do is pull together those 41 aldermen and others, have the conversation about how we can build consensus. That is leading us toward a democratic
about
process.
The debt. And again, my colleague has been consistent with his fiscal critiques. Again, to her credit, our chairwoman Jeanette Taylor has brought down CPS on many occasions to address this question. He had a year and a half to produce a plan to save jobs, produce resources, and make sure that we have 5-star schools, in which he did not. And for the first time, you have a mayor who has has 3 kids in public schools. So the first board members are his kids, because his kids' experiences are important to him as a parent. And any parent that has kids in public schools will do anything that they can to make sure that their kids can compete. It just so happens to be a black mayor who's doing whatever he can do to make sure that every kid can compete. And now it's a concern. Where was a concern when 50 schools got closed?
What about
Where
the
was a
41
concern when we
aldermen?
were stealing
I was
money
concerned
and
about
using
that.
it for development instead of investing in kids? Nobody was concerned then, and umpteen many alders sat back and allowed it. And for the first time, you have people that are saying enough is enough. Let's invest in black and brown neighborhoods so that kids can compete.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but we are running out of time. We could talk about this for probably another half an hour. But I really appreciate you all being here and sharing your insights. Alderman Conway, Representative Williams, Alderman Hall, Alderman Sikcha-Lopez, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And one note before we go, WTTW is partnering with the Joyce Foundation and the City Club of Chicago for an event tomorrow entitled Teens, Social Media, and Reducing Gun Violence, a Roadmap. You can find more information on the City Club of Chicago's website. And that's our show for this Monday night. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter, The Daily Chicagoan. That's at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Brandis Friedman will talk one-on-one with Mayor Johnson about the situation at the Chicago Public Schools and state lawmakers on efforts to improve the Chicago area's public transportation systems and attract more riders. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Nick Blumberg. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm committed to giving back to the community through law and philanthropy.